I'm Bill Webster and I'm an advisor with Tempest Wealth, who's a corporate representative of Financial Services Partners, FSP.
Very good. And how long have you been an advisor, Bill?
36 and a bit years. A very long time. Very long time.
Well, it's all relative, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Okay, so obviously, and we say that to quite a few of your colleagues who've been advisors for a while, you've clearly seen a few changes in your time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's been a raft of changes as we go back over the 36 years, but you know what? I think the future belongs to those people that can adapt to change and make whatever changes they need to make to stay in the game, really.
Sure.
Instead of fighting in the tide all the time.
Fair enough. Let's come back to that as we talk about the present and the future. But in terms of the past, what were you doing before you became an advisor, Bill?
Yes, I was working for a sports magazine. I really enjoyed sport, particularly running, long distance running, and I was working for a magazine called Fun Runner magazine, which was owned by one of the most horrible people that I've ever met. And it was living the pain of that employment that someone got me at a family party, a fellow who was an advisor who said, "I think you'd go well as a life insurance agent." And the thing that turned me over was he said, "If you come and do this, you'll be master of your own destiny." And that was the thing that I felt I wanted to be at that point in time.
That sounds pretty brilliant. If your boss at the magazine hadn't been so awful, do you think that's a sliding door moment for you? Do you think you would have continued your career working with the magazine?
Very interesting you raise that, Pete, because I'm big on defining moments, and I've got 9 defining moments in my life that have led me to where I am now. That was defining moment 2.
Okay, well, the next obvious question then, Bill, is can you take us back to defining moment number 1?
Defining moment number 1 was being conscripted for Vietnam.
Okay.
I have the luxury of being in the last intake and the luxury of the last date of birth to ever be called out of the hat for national service was my date of birth in June. And I had been in the bank. I left school at year 10. The bank had offered me a scholarship to go to London for 2 years to do international banking. I was 19 and I was to go at the end of 1972, and then I got conscripted in the middle of 1972.
So you were conscripted in the last ball taken out of the hat?
Yep, for Vietnam. Fortunately, did our training, but then Gough Whitlam decided to remove Australia from the Vietnam War, which meant that the guys around me, we were the last intake, but the guys around me never actually went to Vietnam.
So he never actually went to you. Whilst it's great not to have to go to war, do you ever have any regrets that you didn't complete your training and go to
Great
Vietnam?
question, Peter. The answer to that is yes. I did have some regrets. I think the Army, the way they train you and the way they get you mentally prepared, you want to take that challenge on. Clearly, looking now at some of the poor guys that have struggled since Vietnam, I'm probably glad that we didn't. But certainly, the training and the development that I got in that time, I think was wonderful. I did things that I'd never done before. I was tested like I'd never been before, and I saw myself and a lot of other guys around me change.
Sure.
So it wasn't a bad thing.
Okay, and this is a pretty serious conversation we're having up until now. Were there any lighter moments to your time being conscripted into the Army? Yeah,
well, Army's pretty ruthless in terms of teaching you lessons. And I remember we went out on a 2-day boot march, 25 k's out into the real tough scrub and 25 k's back. And I got back and I was told that the Sergeant Major wanted to see me at the office. So I went over there and he promptly brought me to attention, about faced me and marched me over to this plain cream coloured concrete wall, brought me to attention and left me there for 4 hours. And in the Army discipline, if you're left at attention, you must stay there until that person comes back and calls at ease. Anyway, 4 hours later he came back and he said, about face, at ease, and then he had a clock in his hand, a bedside clock, and he said, "Do you know what this is?" And I said, "Sir, this is a bedside clock." He said, "Do you know whose clock this is?" I said, "No, sir." everyone's got clocks like that and they all look the same. He said, this is your clock, Private. You left that clock out in your room to be taken by someone like me when you left yesterday morning on that exercise. You won't do it again, will you, Private? And I never did it again in the rest of my training. So it's a bit like life. They have a different way of teaching you life's lessons, but looking back on it now, it's kind of funny, but I remember it. Yeah,
you sure do. And somehow I get the sense that that sliding door moment has really helped you become what you are today, Bill.
Look, I think it's contributed. Like a lot of things happen. The change of hating the job at the magazine got me into the industry. And then the last working day of 1982, I'd been 9 months in the industry, cold calling, all sorts of different people. And my aim was to make $4,000 for a month. That was my aim when I started out in 1981, which was more than I'd earned anywhere working. And I hadn't achieved that goal. And at the last working day of the month of February 1982, I'd earned $200 for the month. When I finally called a cold call on a doctor, and he said, listen, I would like you to speak also with my 2 doctor partners about this income protection plan. Short story, they all bought the income protection plan, the commission of which was $3,800. So put that together with the 200, and there was the first month that I achieved my goal. And I think that was a real sliding door moment because I was ready to go. I was ready to quit. So the message in all of that is, it's tough when you start, but just don't quit. Just
brilliant story, Bill.
Yeah.
We haven't got time to go through your 9 sliding door moments, but what was the 9th?
The business succession plan that we carried out in 2012 with my then business partner, Colin. Yeah, okay. It was a very awesome time because we'd planned it, we'd built the thing together, we'd planned it, and we executed. So that's the 9th one. Yeah.
Okay, so you're not a full-on, full-time advisor these days. What do you do when you're not advising?
Yeah, I'm actually doing a lot of consulting work around running workshops for young advisors, help coaching them, particularly around client engagement and relationships, because I think it's something that's needed. And I also think a lot of us old guys have got a lot of intellectual property that's still valuable, that can be shared, and I'm all about keeping that going, because I think it can be of value to the next generation of advice.
Oh, that sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
When you're relaxing, how do you relax?
Still like running, although most people pass me these days. Still enjoy. We live near the beach, so love going surfing and swimming, and my wife and I love long distance walking as well. So we do a lot of trail walks. We walked across Spain a couple of years ago, did the famous Camino de Santiago, which was fantastic. So we've got a whole range of things, plus 5 grandkids to keep us busy.
All right, a question you'll have no idea about the answer to. How many kilometres have you walked or run in your life, Bill?
Well, interestingly, on my Fitbit, I just got an email the other day that said I've done 8,500 Ks on this Fitbit. So
when did you get it?
I've walked November 2016. No, sorry, 15. November 15.
So unbelievably, you're actually able to answer my question that I thought you'd have no idea.
8,500 in just under 2 years. There you go. How about that?
Well, our viewers are processing that right now. So am I. Bill Webster, thank you very much for your time.
It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you.